this might just be the busiest theme park in the world that you've never heard of. You probably know Disneyland Paris, Tokyo Disney Sea, Universal Studios Hollywood, or even Europa Park. But down in southern China, there's a park that attracts more visitors than all of them. This is Chimelong Ocean Kingdom, the world's single most visited theme park outside of Disney and Universal. Which is honestly kind of crazy, because unlike those two, this park has only been open for just over a decade. It doesn't feature any internationally recognized brands or characters. It's tucked away in the middle of nowhere, and its main attraction is basically an aquarium. Yet every year, tens of millions of people flood through its gates. So why on earth is it this busy? On our recent theme park trip to China, where we tackled 6 parks across 4 cities in 12 days, we set out to answer that very question. Because despite its insane popularity, almost no one outside of China ever talks about this place. So join us as we find out whether Chimelong Ocean Kingdom is truly a world-class theme park destination, or just an overhyped aquarium with a couple of fancy rides. So what's it actually like to walk into the busiest non-Disney theme park in the world? Well, when we first arrived, the scale of the place completely blindsided us. From the giant spaceship next door, and yes, there's a giant spaceship next door, make sure to go check out our full video on it, you can already see Chimelong Ocean Kingdom's skyline rising over the horizon. Mountains, roller coasters, 2 massive stone walruses, and towering above everything else, a gigantic whale shark statue. Now pictures don't do this thing justice. It's overwhelming, and honestly kind of ridiculous. And you'll never guess what attraction sits right at the bottom of it. But we might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. Chimelong Ocean Kingdom is part of the Chimelong International Ocean Tourist Resort, catchy name. It contains 2 theme parks, a stack of hotels, multiple circuses, because Chinese citizens really love their circuses apparently, shopping, dining, and more. The company behind it has openly said they want this to be the Orlando of China. And honestly, they're well on their way. Back in 2009, this was essentially farmland, and in just 15 years, it's become a sprawling mega resort. We had 2 days here staying on site at the Henqing Bay Hotel, which casually has multi-story dolphin statues in the lobby, and of course, its very own dolphin pool outside. We knew this trip was going to be a little different, but at this stage, we didn't realize just how different it would be. Usually when we visit a park, we wake up early and try to get in as soon as possible. But the first time we visited Ocean Kingdom, we actually started our day at the spaceship park next door. This was because of the one thing you can never predict on any theme park trip, the weather. And it had it out for us, with huge downpours expected over the 2 days we were staying at the resort. Our plan was simple: hide indoors in the spaceship when it rained and hit Ocean Kingdom when it cleared. Easy. But Dom, having lived in Hong Kong, knew that the weather in this part of the world can flip on a dime. And on a dime, it flipped. We left the spaceship just as the forecast said things would ease up, and were immediately greeted by a giant billboard flashing an orange typhoon warning. Not great. Most rides won't run in the rain, and they definitely don't run in typhoons, which meant anything we missed today would be have to crammed into our day tomorrow. We debated bailing and heading back to the hotel, but Ocean Kingdom does have some indoor attractions, and we knew if we knocked these out now, it would free up time later on tomorrow. Plus, this was our only night at the resort. Tomorrow, we had to leave for Macau, and if the weather didn't break tonight, we'd miss their famous nighttime spectacular completely. So against our better judgment, we put our faith in the forecast and pressed on into Chimelong Ocean Kingdom. Now the park wastes no time trying to impress you with one of the wildest entrances we've ever seen in a theme park. Once you pass through the gates, you enter Ocean Avenue. This park's equivalent land is something like Main Street, USA at Disneyland. Though instead of a quaint, old Americana town, you're instead dominated by one of the largest LED screens we've ever seen towering above you. It alternates between incredible-looking ocean vistas to awkwardly cropped advertisements all day long. This thing was mind-blowingly bright, and our cameras struggled to capture just the sheer scale and intensity of this screen. It's bold, it's bright, and it immediately sets the tone that this place is huge, brash, and perhaps a little inconsistent. Layout-wise, Chimelong Ocean Kingdom borrows from the Universal playbook, a hub around a central lake with lands branching off of it. Now, there are 8 lands in total: Ocean Avenue, Dolphin Cove, Amazing Amazon, Ocean Beauty, Polar Horizon, Hen Queen Ocean, Mount Walrus, and Fun Zone. While the layout echoes Universal, the overall vibe lands closer to SeaWorld, mostly themed attractions with occasional pockets of jank. It's definitely a step up from a Six Flags park, but it doesn't reach the level of Universal or Disney. Across the parks we visited in China, one pattern kept popping up: wild swings in quality. You'll walk from a dramatic, beautifully executed set piece into a space that feels unfinished or just empty. Case in point, tucked behind Fun Zone is a gigantic outdoor theater which could easily fit tens of thousands of guests. But it's that empty all day. I'm guessing it's reserved for concerts or special events, and regulars seem to know to ignore it. We mostly found this interesting just because you rarely see an area this secluded in most parks around the world, because it's basically an invitation for mischief when not in use. But what is a theme park without rides? Well, a bad theme park, but thankfully Chimelong Ocean Kingdom does have rides. And their assortment is one of the most hodgepodge collections of rides from any theme park we've been to. 2 Mack water coasters on completely different sides of the park? Hey, why not? Rides with essentially no signage? Sure, build them. A ride that literally takes you through bears? Of course. But before we talk about the bear ride, let's talk about Odoo, the sponsor of today's video. This video is sponsored by Odoo, an all-in-one management software that helps business owners with invoicing, accounting, project management, inventory, website creation, and more. Basically, if you've got a business idea, Odoo makes it happen. You can even launch your very own rides through Bear's business, because apparently that's a thing now. Here's how it works. With Odoo's website builder, you can spin up your e-commerce site in just a few clicks. The configurator and AI generate the structure for you. You just drag and drop and customize. Add your products, say bear coaster front row splash seat, set in a price, throw in some photos, and boom, it's live. From there, Odoo handles the boring but essential stuff, the invoicing, payments, shipments, and even accounting. Everything is centralized, so you're not juggling 20 apps just to sell one ticket to your very questionable bear-themed attraction. Best of all though, the first app is free for life with unlimited hosting and support, and you can access all the applications starting at just 19.90 euros a month. So whether you're selling t-shirts, theme park pins, or rides through bears, Odoo has you covered. Check it out using the link in the description, and thanks again to Odoo for sponsoring this video. And now back to the park that literally has a ride through bears. Have I made that clear yet? The park seems to jump between wanting to be a rides-focused park and an animals-focused one, and somewhat strikes a reasonable balance between the two. With the rain still threatening to fall, we cautiously jumped into the 5-minute queue for our first ride of the day, the park's B&M wing coaster called Parrot Coaster. This ride is your standard B&M wing coaster, but one that starts with an incredible view over the park and towards Chimelong Spaceship, before dropping you down and whipping you around the entire Amazon part of the park, past a very angry-looking tree. I don't know what I did, Mr. Tree, but I'm sorry I did it. And then, just as predicted, the rain hit, and it hit hard. We made friends with a bunch of people under a small shelter near the central lake, and to our surprise, we could hear music in the distance. It almost sounded like a parade, but surely in this weather they wouldn't run the parade, right? Nope, never mind, they did run the parade. It was kind of surreal seeing this giant elephant wandering through the park with literally nobody around, because they were all seeking shelter. But with the rain here to stay for now, there was no better time to check out the attraction underneath the park's giant whale centerpiece. Now you can see this thing from pretty much everywhere in the resort, and I'd like to take a moment to let you quickly guess What might be under it? Perhaps a giant dark ride? Grand show stage? Or an indoor roller coaster? Well, it's none of these. It's an aquarium. So you can imagine our disappointment when by this point we had already seen about 20 of them over in the spaceship next door. But praise where it's due, this was one of the biggest aquariums we've ever seen. And the reason they have a giant whale shark above it is because inside, there are whale sharks. Take it in. The majesty, the beauty, so many fish, so many whale sharks. Well, you're taking it in a lot easier than we were, because let me just unmute the audio for a second. Yeah, as you can imagine, we didn't really want to spend too much time in here because it was an overstimulating nightmare. Those giant panes of glass essentially acted as acoustic reflectors for every staff member with a megaphone, spruiking a paid photo opportunity. As you can imagine, we didn't spend too much time in here. Now, technically there is an attraction in this building, but you'd be forgiven for not knowing it's there due to its inconceivably small sign. This was Deep Sea Odyssey, an attraction that turned out to be arguably the coolest thing in the park. Stepping aboard, we thought, wow, this sure looks like Nemo at Epcot, and that's because it pretty much was Nemo from Epcot, but through a much larger aquarium tank. I don't think there are any other theme park rides in the world where from the comfort of your Omnimover ride system, you can observe whale sharks. In our opinion, this is the best way to experience these creatures because in these tunnels, it's actually quiet and dare I say peaceful. The tank this thing travels through is jaw-droppingly alive with fish and marine life and caused both of us to audibly say, wow. But we didn't audibly say wow though at the paper mache volcano that for some reason had its own designated show scene in the middle of the ride. While this park isn't quite as record-obsessed as its sister park next door, they do have several Guinness World Records to their name, including the world's largest 4D theater held in a building called the 5D Castle Theater. Inside, they play a film based on the park's original characters entitled Karkar's Great Adventure, which is projected on a jaw-droppingly big 1,500 square meter curved screen. I have no recollection of what happened in the show other than there was this creepy baby whale shark genie thing that I hated. And there was also a cool finale where the animatronics of the characters came out flying on a giant bird, and that's the only thing we have footage of. Next on our to-do list was the not one, but two Mach water coasters. If you know me, you know I hate getting wet. So having just survived a torrential downpour the day before, I whacked on my best poncho and headed towards Walrus Splash. Looking at this insane facade with a drop between two giant walrus stone mountains, you might be surprised to learn that this is somehow the least exciting of the two Mach water coasters. It's identical to several other coasters around the world, with you heading up the lift into a turntable, taking the first drop backwards, before spinning around to be greeted by the two imposing walruses guarding the ride's main soaker of a drop. With my poncho still on, we headed to the next absolute drencher of a coaster. From the outside, Polar Explorer looks like a regular Mach water coaster, built in and around one of the most impressive fake mountains you've ever seen in a theme park. But on the ride, it holds a bananas secret. Once you jump on board and leave the station, you round the corner to be greeted by a family of brown bears. Once your brain comprehends what you just saw, you hit a lift hill which takes you up into the mountain, where you quickly realize it's just a big facade hiding a worryingly dirty and rusted out coaster track behind. But be warned that the final drop can get you absolutely soaked if you're in the front row. But we were smart, sat towards the back, and only got slightly spritzed. Elsewhere, the park has several flat rides and other family-friendly attractions, but we didn't do any of them as we already had limited time in the park, and the rain on the first day made that time limit even more constricted. Now again, in all of these you get wild swings in quality. this is probably a good time to talk about the park's overall theming. It does a decent job, and you can tell a lot of work has gone into areas such as Mount Walrus and the other various megastructures that form the park's silhouette. However, there are a lot of places around Ocean Kingdom that seem like they haven't been touched for decades, which is odd considering this park is just over 10 years old. It's almost impressive how damaged and worn down some parts of the park have gotten over the years, whilst other areas are immaculate and appear as if they were just constructed yesterday. Overall, this is a nice looking park that's pleasant to look around, that lacks areas and rides that provide a deeper level of immersive entertainment. So by now you've probably picked up the fact that this park isn't anything crazy amazing. So why on earth is it the most visited theme park outside of Universal and Disney? Well, just across the bay is Macau. You can literally see it from the resort. And as of July 2025, Macau has already welcomed over 20 million tourists this year. If you didn't know, Macau is basically the Vegas of China. Actually, that's a bit unfair to Macau. In 2024, the Las Vegas Strip recorded $8.8 billion in revenue from gaming. The entire state of Nevada recorded $15.6 billion US. Macau almost doubled that number at $28.3 billion US in revenue from gaming. But what's even crazier about those numbers is that the numbers out of Nevada are reported from over 400 licensed casinos statewide. Macau only has 31. We actually visited Macau on the same trip after visiting Ocean Kingdom, and let me tell you, Macau is kind of boring. Vegas outside of the gambling is all about entertainment. There are theme parks, roller coasters, terrible magic shows with David Copperfield's weird alien friend Blue 32, musician residencies, and Universal even has permanent scare mazes here, and of course, the Sphere. But in Macau, gambling is serious business. People aren't here for a good time, they're here to win. Most of Macau's visitors come from nearby regions in mainland China, and many of them will arrive in the morning, gamble for several hours straight, maybe dine, and then return home the same day. Official tourism statistics often show that well over half of Macau's visitors don't stay overnight. In traditional Chinese culture, luck and fate are seen as powerful forces shaping outcomes in life. Gambling, especially in games of pure chance like Baccarat, is often viewed not as a contest of skill, but as a way of testing or revealing one's fortune. So the city doesn't need to lean on shows or rides. Outside the tables, entertainment options are thin. Great place to explore, sure, but just don't expect Vegas. Which is exactly why Ocean Kingdom makes sense here. Drop a massive family resort 15 minutes across the border, and you can catch spillover from a mega destination that has surprisingly little to do beyond gambling. Do Macau in the morning, hop to Chimelong for coasters and aquariums in the afternoon, or spend all your time in Macau and send your family over to the theme parks. It's a win-win. And Chimelong ain't dabbling with their expansions here. If you saw our video on Chimelong's spaceship, you'll know they're going all in. 2 theme parks built already, multiple hotels and circuses, and construction underway for at least 2 more parks. When they say they want to turn this into the Orlando of China, they really mean it, with the whole resort eventually aiming for capacity of 50 million guests a year. Across the park, there were several animal-based performances, but we decided to give them a miss. While we choose to avoid these, it would be wrong not to acknowledge the larger ethical debate around parks like Chimelong Ocean Kingdom. Professionals in the field, such as Justin Olsvik, a wildlife conservationist based in China, wrote an excellent article for Theme Park Insider that I have linked in the description and implore you to read. As Olsvik points out, the park engages in practices from wild capture to lack of independent welfare oversight that conservationists across the world condemn. At the same time, though, he stresses that the conservation is more complicated when placed in the context of China's relationship with wildlife. Conservation in China is hugely complicated. And we must combat the ideas of consuming endangered animals, much less promoting their protection. The fact that Chimelong Ocean Kingdom is as successful as it is, the millions of people are viewing wildlife as something interesting, worthy of respect, and inherently valuable for simply existing, instead of as a resource to be consumed, reflects a massive societal change. And we often get a lot of criticism in the comments for visiting and covering parks like this one. And honestly, it's something we think about a lot. There's always that tension that by showcasing a park like this, we're somehow legitimizing these practices that we're not comfortable with. But on the other hand, choosing not to talk about it doesn't sit right either. For many people watching, this might be their first real exposure to what parks like Chimelong are, how they operate, and why they're controversial. If we're honest about our discomfort and about the nuance that professionals like Olsvik highlight, and at least we're opening up a space for viewers to think critically and form their own opinions. Now, one of the shows we did see that we talked about earlier and featured no animal performers was the weird day parade that contained a single float, a giant steampunk mammoth that seemed like they looked at Maleficent from Festival of Fantasy and went, yeah, we want that, but mammoth mode. To make the story even crazier, that float and its accompanying dancers set off about 2 minutes before typhoon rains hit the park, and they couldn't turn around. By the time the parade got to where we were huddling with an assortment of other guests under a single umbrella. The cast in the parade looked so defeated, some of them were questioning every life decision that led them to this moment. The other show we saw was an absolutely bonkers nighttime spectacular that featured absurd amounts of fireworks firing so close over our heads, we got jump scared by them. Halloween Horror Nights who? Show also had giant projections on that whale shark, water hoverboard guys, enough fire to make Hades jealous, and even drones. Though unfortunately these were grounded on our viewing due to wind. I have no idea what the story or throughline of this show was. I just know it put the spectacle into nighttime spectacular. As we mentioned earlier, the park also has a ton of aquariums and animal displays, but honestly, after just visiting the spaceship next door, we were all fish viewinged out. There's only so much time you can watch fish swim, and seemingly, we hit that limit. At this point, we checked out the gift shop, bought ourselves a Walrus Mountain pin, because who wouldn't, and headed over to MacDougall. A quick 20-minute trip to truly explain to us why this park exists where it does. So is this a world-class destination or just an overhyped aquarium? For the 6th busiest theme park in the world, Chimelong Ocean Kingdom is remarkably unmemorable. On a trip where we did so many jaw-dropping theme parks and experiences, this one kind of just exists, with nothing too memorable or groundbreaking. Well, except the stupidly large walruses and whale sharks. It's not a bad park by any stretch of the imagination, but it's missing that must-visit draw for pretty much any international visitor. I guess its draw is the fact that its sister park next door is set inside a giant spaceship. But over to you. Have you ever heard of Chimelong Ocean Kingdom? And if so, was it for good or bad reasons? Let us know down below. For Review Time, I'm Luke. Thanks for watching.